Jason, what's going on?
How you doing?
Good. We'll give it a couple more minutes. People jump on.
Hey guys.
Hey. Hey, if possible, try to turn your videos on. Just because I'm recording this, it just looks better when I'm recording versus talking to a bunch of blank screens.
How you doing, Paul?
Good. Mr. Mill, I need you to go watch that video on Section 179 and special depreciation and re-answer me. They're kind of the same thing. Why? Again, hearing echo.
Yeah.
Is that a yes? You guys hear echo?
Yep.
Okay, that is weird. Hmm. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, that's interesting. Turned off my good mic. No, Mr. Miller, I was saying, go watch my training video. I'm giving you shit on Section 179 versus special depreciation. There's quite a bit of difference between the two.
Okay,
One
how
has
far off was I?
limitations. One, you have to make income, net income, to use it. They're kind of the same thing, but they're kind of different. They do have limitations.
Okay. No, when you
So,
asked, I just did a quick
yeah.
Copilot
The point
search
is, I
on it.
want everybody to go watch the videos because there's a lot of good shit in there.
Yep.
We'll give it another minute. I sent you guys email on getting access to the searcher. Did you guys get that?
Yeah, I got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Let me know if you guys have any problems. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll go ahead and roll at 7:05. So we might go through this one pretty quick. This one's kind of an interesting deal that I looked at. Somebody in my actual GoBundance community brought this to me a couple of years ago. Yeah, right at a couple of years ago. And I initially liked this deal so much that I wanted part of it. It was, I'm assuming it's still in business, a trash hauling company in rural Tennessee. Got just a couple trucks and a bunch of routes and things like that. And this is the email that he sent to me. And this was the price. So $800,000 purchase price. I think the real estate was included. $310 in vehicles. I don't know what $140,000 in existing client accounts means. I don't think that means anything. But the numbers looked really, 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 really good. And he started this thing from scratch. So there's the 2020 tax return. Hold on, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So it just started in 2020 from scratch, which I do not recommend starting from scratch at all. You guys should know that. This is the whole tax return. So what does Schedule C mean, by the way, up here? Everybody know what that is? Anybody got an answer? No answers?
Need answers?
Sole proprietor.
No proprietor. Right. So that's item number one to hit, right? So we don't ever want to have a sole proprietor. There's no liability protection at all. And then secondly, you're paying maximum taxation, 100% self-employment tax on 100% of your income, all that sort of shit. So you could start at year one, make sure you're going to make money and be a viable business, but very quickly within 6 months, if you got a business, and then convert over to a real legal entity. But really no expense, a little bit of advertising, supplies, other expenses, don't know what those are. All right, so he grew very quickly in 21, 200,000 income, still Schedule C, not good. This is why you guys need a team, right? If he had a team, somebody would have pulled his head out of his ass and told him to start create a legal entity, right? He's hauling hazardous waste, and he has no liability protection. Not good. So he doesn't have a team around him. Just not good. Okay, I'm going to come back to this in a second. You guys see that? Contract labor. So that means he has no employees. Everybody is 1099. You guys got to catch this when you're looking at financial statements. That's a big one. Probably maybe even mentioned it last week. I will mention that every single time. You guys are looking at deals. You got to understand their labor makeup. Do they have 1099? Do they have W-2? Should they have 1099? Should they have W-2? Right? Because when you take over a company, you are going to do the right thing. So here, if you ask a question, which is what I did, which I'll get into in a second. Oh, what do your laborers do? Right? Go to irs.gov. Google 1099 versus W-2. It's like 5 questions you ask. And that's going to tell you if you have a W-2 or a 1099 person. Okay? So the law states if you have a 1099, and they should be W-2, and if you ever get audited, you are responsible for 100% of both sides of the equation, right? Self-employment tax is both the employer and the employee side of payroll taxes being paid together. Because you work for yourself, you're the employer, and you're also the employee. So you pay both sides. That's called self-employment tax, right? If you work for somebody, you have a W-2, then your employer, your boss, pays half of it, and you get taken out the other half out of your paycheck, the approximately 8%, right? The employer pays 8 and you pay 8. Self-employment tax pays 16. So contract labor, 1099, as the employer, I don't pay any payroll taxes. So it behooves me to label you as 1099, right? Does that make sense? Yes. But legally, can I do that? Several rules, right? Do you supervise them? Do they or can they work for somebody else? Do they own their own equipment and trucks? Can they make up their own hours, etc.? There's like 4 or 5 questions, right? So that's a question you need to ask during due diligence, right? Because if you got $200,000 payroll that's all 1099 and you ask questions and you have to convert them to W-2 because you're going to be following the law, once you buy this business, $200,000, and you're going to be paying 8% of that in payroll taxes, that's 16 grand. And if you paid a 4 multiple for that company, you just overpaid by $52,000 on your purchase price. Right? Makes sense? Anybody got questions there? I'll take it as a no. All right. Lots of depreciation. So what did he do this year? He bought a bunch of trucks, right? Which allowed him to go to 208. And he probably did a section 179, which allows you to take an entire write-off of that amount. Okay, we're going to get to this number here very quickly. Insurance. Okay, it'll be a little bit more evident on what I'm talking about in a second. Why I ended up backing out of this deal. Repairs and maintenance on the trucks, other expenses. So he lost $213,000, $210. But remember, we have a soft cost of $270 over here. So if you add that back from an owner's add back perspective, he made 60 grand. Not bad. 30% to the bottom line. Not a bad little business. Landfill. So other expenses here is always going to be detailed, which is here. So your landfill and your gas expenses adds to the 48 up here. Okay. All right. There's 222 or 2022. More than doubled his revenue. Okay, man, going in the right direction. Contract labor, 168. I don't see any employee cost. Depreciation, bought another truck or 2. Insurance, let's talk about insurance right now. Okay, so let's go over the detail a little bit more on what this guy's doing. Okay, so $571,000 in revenue. He has where's his trucks? There's his equipment. And I'm going to bring this back to the insurance. But before I go back to the insurance, what do you see about those trucks? What sticks out?
It's old.
Super old. Right? Super old. Right? So you're going to have to replace those. Trash truck. He has some these things right here. You ever seen a big garbage truck come down your alley or in your front driveway? How much do you think those things brand new cost? 400 grand? 300 grand?
Yep.
So if you replace them, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Now you can buy used as well, but even a nice used one. So your maintenance expense is going to be really high, which is probably fine. You just got to make sure you budget for it, and you're going to have to replace these every once in a while. So when you make $400,000 a year, you better be sticking $100,000 aside every single year for you to update and replace vehicles, engine replacement, anything like that. So super old. So you need to make sure you got lots of maintenance expense in there and set aside some money for replacement. Okay. So let's just talk about insurance now. It's $322,000 of vehicles. I have, let's just say that I own personally $100,000 worth of personal vehicles. Let's just say that. What would be a good insurance number for me to personally pay car insurance? $10,000 a year? Does that sound about right? Let's go with yeah. Okay, well that's triple that. This is 322. So if I had this from a personal perspective, just commuting and going to the grocery store and going to kids' soccer games, me personally, if I own $322,000 worth of cars, I'd be spending $32,000 a year in insurance just for normal shit. Okay, these are big old expensive vehicles hauling hazardous waste. Right? And driving 10 hours a day. Nobody personally drives 10 hours a day. So your risk is probably 5 times greater than a personal vehicle risk, right? That I drive an hour or 2 a day. These guys drive 10 hours a day. So the likelihood they're going to be in a risk is 5 or 6 times higher than mine. So therefore their insurance fee should be higher, right? $6,000 worth of insurance. Man, that's not good. What's next year? Off of $571,000, insurance is 10 grand. I just said if I own personal vehicles, my insurance would be 30, right? And they're driving 5x the amount of time I am, and they're carrying hazardous waste. So what do you think a good insurance number should really be if they're properly insured? 120 grand? If you got an insurance person in your pocket, that's a 10-minute phone call, or you're like, hey, Nina's on my referral list. Hey, this is what's going on. What just give me 5 minutes, rough and dirty. She said 120 grand. So you're going to take over this company, and you already know we're going to have to go to W-2. That's going to cost you an extra $20,000 a year. Here's an extra $100,000 a year of cost, an extra $120,000 of expenses. Right there, just on those 2 things. You had a question.
So in the sim, some of you signed an NDA. Can you just speak in round numbers to an insurance broker and just ask for?
Yeah. Because you're not giving out name or information or anything like that. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty understood that you're going to talk to a CPA and an attorney and advisor, all that sort of stuff. You're just not divulging information that's proprietary. So you wouldn't say, you just say, hey, I got a company. It's in Tennessee. They do trash hauling in a rural area. They do $500,000 a year. Just don't give them the name or location or name or anything like that. Name of the seller, name of the business, anything like that. Because the whole thing with an NDA is where they're going to get you is if anybody's injured, right? So So me talking to the insurance broker, even if I told him the name of the company, I don't even remember the name of this, and told him the owner and all this sort of shit, and even told him the federal EIN number. I mean, was anybody damaged because I did that? No. So they'll have a lawsuit against me, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, but outside of those two things I talked about, the contract labor and the insurance, I still like the company, right? Because it's growing. So there, remember, we're going to detail the 143. We're going to go down here, the 143, landfill bill and gas expense, just fuel expense, is their 143 up here. Okay. And year 3, they still don't have a team, because the team definitely by now would have told them to pull their head out of their ass and go get a legal entity, right? So I don't know what his personal assets are, but he's a Schedule C, and he gets in a car and he gets in an accident. God forbid he's carrying hazardous waste. He loses everything his own, all of his stock accounts, his house, probably come after his 401k. A lot of 401k and IRAs used to be unpenetrable, but they're kind of getting around a lot of that shit now. So here's what we get for somebody that's for sale by owner, by the way. Here's his 23 estimated P&L that they gave us. And if you remember, if we go back, I got this in January of 24, February of 24. So 2 months into the year, and they still don't have P&Ls yet for 23. Nothing abnormal here. I don't even see, is insurance on here? Oh, I'm assuming Farm Bureau's is insurance, 10 grand. So still way underinsured. Look how high the maintenance number is starting to get, 55 grand. So I estimated income to be 250. Okay. So that was written on there before I did any analysis on the W-2 versus 1099 and on insurance. So the income was going to be approximately 250. And don't forget the 350, if we go back up to the very top, don't forget $350,000 of real estate's included in this deal. So off the cuff, just a 3 multiple, because it is growing. A 3 multiple on the 250 is 750, plus the 350 is 1.1 million, right? That's a smoking hot deal. And how I would do stuff like this, whenever real estate is involved, I always just put in appraise. He already said appraise. So if it comes in appraised 450, I'm buying it for 450. If it comes in appraised at 250, I'm buying it for 250. It protects both sides. So I don't even negotiate the real estate at all. Buy real estate every single time you possibly can. Every single time. You get massive term negotiation in deals when real estate. If real estate is more than 51% of the deal, which it's not here, if it's more than 51% of the deal, the SBA will do the entire thing on a 25-year term. Massive cash flow. Massive.
Oh, that was gonna. Yeah, that was gonna be my question. If real estate's involved, is it 2 separate loans?
This would be one loan.
So one loan if it's over 51%.
It could be 2 separate loans. But yeah, if real estate's 350 and the purchase of the business is 349, it's going to be one loan all at 25 years. So what that's going to do, you're going to have massive cash flow because your loan payments are going to be so small, which allows you to do what? Save a shitload of money that you're going to put in your pocket. And in 18 months, you're going to have enough money to buy business number 2. Right? Buy the real estate every freaking time. Every time. All right, so we're back over here.
What's the real estate here in this business? Is this like a warehouse where he parks his trucks?
I can't answer that. I'm assuming so. Commercial building, single wide. SFR. Single family ranch? Is that what we're going with there? What do you guys think? Single family ranch? That's what I'm going with. It's in rural Tennessee. In fact, I probably should have redacted that. I'm assuming it's some ranch with a metal building on top of it.
Why would you, if it's a single family ranch, why would you want that?
I mean, that's where the company's. How's that any different than any other piece of real estate that somebody's running a business out of? That's where he's parking all. That's where he's parking all this shit. Where's he going to park all this stuff?
You don't have to worry about a lease expiring and going up in 10 years too.
Where are you going to park all that stuff? And if I remember, he had people doing all the maintenance and shit at the facility, if I do remember that correctly. So anyway, I love the deal. I initially thought it was worth 1.1 million when he just first sent this to me before I started asking some questions. And then once I kind of looked at it, I probably had a 10-minute conversation with the seller and the buyer together, and just asked a couple questions. Asked him about his workers. We talked about the labor. And I just asked him a real quick question. I was like, what do they do? All right, they drive my trucks. Do they own the trucks themselves? No. They work for everybody else now. And so right then I knew they were W-2. And then just a smell test of insurance. I owned one truck at my flooring company. One truck. And we're not hauling hazardous waste or anything like that. One truck. And it's a piece of shit truck. I got a dustless sanding system inside of it that we use to sand wood floors, and it's a big vacuum in essence. And that cost me $9,000 a month, $9,000 a year, just for that one truck. And he's got like 6. So insurance fees would be minimum 120. And then so what was really making 250, I thought was making around 100. And so I thought the business was worth 3 and the real estate was worth 350. And so I told the buyer to offer him 700. That was what the company was worth. And obviously the seller told him to go F off. He probably eventually ended up selling it for 700, unless he held on to it for another year or two and kept growing it, and then maybe sold it for his 1.1 that he wanted. But this was a real simple situation here, but very, very much a good example of read between the lines when you're looking at financial statements.
So Paul, this is Antoine again. So is this conversation happening pre or post LOI, right? And the reason why I'm asking is, of course, you'll get a hot deal, right, that kind of comes across and it looks appealing on paper. And so I guess when it comes to having that decision of, okay, do I submit an LOI and kind of figure out the details more in due diligence? That's sort of my question. Would you feel comfortable going ahead and submitting an LOI and then having this conversation post LOI and then ultimately withdrawing the deal, or are you doing
either one? I don't think it really matters here. This is we're not looking at pages and an 80-page tax return or anything like that. It's not very complicated. This was actually pre-LOI that I asked those questions, right? I mean, if you see a couple simple things like this, ask questions before LOI. It's going to save you a lot of time. You go through LOI, and then you go through negotiation. You're back and forth, and then 6 weeks later, you finally get it signed. You spend a lot of time, and there's a couple of glaring things like this you should have asked. It would have saved you a lot of time. You can just move on to the next one.
Gotcha.
And when you do stuff like this too, a lot of you guys are and some people not on this call are kind of frustrated dealing with brokers already and realizing how unintelligent and uncaring business brokers are. That they present you with a bunch of dog shit, and then you ask questions they don't know, right? So it's difficult to do these things, but if you present it in a certain fashion, you can still win the deal, right? Hey, Mr. Broker. Hey, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller. I love your deal, but this is what I'm seeing here, right? Talk about you for a second. Hey, I got to make money on this thing, right? I've already talked to my tax person. They said that I got to convert your 1099 people over to W-2. That's going to cost me an extra $20,000 a year because I asked these 5 questions from irs.gov, and yeah, I got to convert them. I don't want the IRS coming after me. So that's going to be additional expenses here. I quickly called my insurance broker, and they gave me a rough estimate. My insurance going forward is going to be $120,000 a year. That you're way underinsured. But I love your company. But for the expenses that I'm going to incur after day one, your company is only worth $700,000. So if you go through that education process, they're probably going to say no, probably tell you to F off, but they may come back to you, right? This is one of the ones where it's always good to be the first in the door unless you run into shit like this. Because they're not going to say, if you're the first in the door and you offer them 700 and they want 1.1, they're going to say no. Second person in the door is going to offer them 700. They're going to say no. Third person, no. Fourth person, wow. First 3 people said 700. Maybe it's worth 700. Maybe I should think about selling it. Right? So don't ever run away from a deal. Just kind of put it on the back burner. I've had a couple deals come back. My HVAC company that I had under letter of intent that I went over last week, I still think I'm going to get. That was last July. And I'm going to take a strong look at it again if it's still for sale after the first 2 quarters of this year to see how it's trending. So I talk to that broker once a month on what's going on. He sends me updated financials and all that sort of stuff. So you should be, I mentioned this last week, you should have 10 lines in the lake at the same time, trying to catch fish with every single one of them. And one of them's going to catch a deal. Right? You're probably going to have 10 letter of intents sent out before you find a deal and close on it. And these are real letter of intents, not just finding a deal, looking at it for 5 minutes and sending a letter of intent. No, I don't consider that a letter of intent. Real letter of intents where there's been some back and forth. You've looked at the financials and you've done several hours worth of analysis and you think it's worth this. And you've talked to me, talked to a couple other people on your team, all that sort of stuff. And now you submitted a letter of intent. That's a real letter of intent. If you do 10 of those, you'll close one deal. So you better have 10 lines in the lake at the same time. If you only got 1 line in the lake, man, it's going to take you a long time to catch fish. It'll take you 2, 3, or 4 years, which may be fine if you like your W-2 and you're slow playing it and you just you're in no hurry to do an exit in 2, 3, 4 years, it's fine. That's okay too. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to buy a business in 9 months, you better have 10 lines in leg. All right, what else? Ask me some questions. It can be off topic, but that's an interesting deal.
So if you bought this company, how would you have run this remotely? Are you flying there, or you had an managing?
Well,
Had
this
a
wasn't my deal. This
engineer?
was not my deal to buy. I was consulting on this deal.
Oh, okay.
Yep. This guy, when he brought me on, was about ready to write a check for $1.1 million. And he may have taken it over and did it exactly the same way and made a shitload of money. He could have had contract labor still and way underinsured, and he may have been fined for 5 or 10 years until that one accident happened. Or what happens is you fire one of your contract labor persons, and they're at a dinner party like 2 months later, and guess who he's talking to? Oh man, it's a labor attorney. And then he's going to file a suit on you. And guess what? They come back after you forever for every single employee. Not just the one employee, not just for a year. You've owned that company for 10 years and you've had $2 million worth of payroll. You're going to get hit with a $300,000 penalty from the IRS. So yeah, he could have bought this. He could have taken it over and made a shitload of money with an unlimited amount of risk that he wasn't even aware of and been fine until there's one accident. And then he's bankrupt and loses his house. So
Tell me how you calculated the cost of contract labor converting to W-2.
let's just say it's $1 million. So I can add numbers in my head. Okay. So it's all 1099. And the other word for 1099 is independent contractor. Same thing. Okay. So that $1 million, let's say you just paid it to Steve, one person, Steve. Steve, when he files his tax return, he's in essence an independent contractor. He works for himself. He's self-employed. He has to pay self-employment on all $1 million of that. Self-employment tax is about 16%, 160 grand. Okay. If Steve was W-2 and he made $1 million, and Steve gets his check, and let's say he just got one check at the end of the year, and it was $1 million. What's taken out of his paycheck? Let's not talk about federal income tax. Let's talk about Social Security tax. What's taken out? 8%, right? $80,000. Guess who pays the other $80,000? Me, the employer. I pay the other $80,000. Okay, add both of those together, the employer and the employee side of Social Security, add them together at 16%, which is the same as self-employment tax. So self-employment tax pays the employer side and the employee side because you work for yourself. You work for somebody else, you only pay half of it. Okay? So if he is this the last year? So let's just say that payroll was 200 grand. So 16% of 200 grand is what? 32 grand, right? So that's self-employment tax. If you convert that over to W-2 and it's 200,000, you're paying half of that expense yourself, which half of 32 is 16 grand, right? So when you convert that over, you're gonna have to start paying payroll taxes. And it's gonna cost you 16 grand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically just tacking 8% on for the
Yeah.
tax.
Which is why you guys got to watch those videos. I've got a 15-minute video on 1099 versus W-2. You just got to watch that stuff. Right? But other than that, I mean, this is the sort of stuff you got to look out for. Insurance, W-2 versus 1099. Rent is a super big one for small companies. especially when they own the building. It gets super confusing when they own the building. So I always like to separate those two transactions, because you try to, if you're buying the business as well, it gets very confusing, because they'll have a rent expense number in there. Let's call it $20,000 a month on rent. We're not talking about this company anymore. We're talking about a general company, $20,000 a month. Okay, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I don't want to buy your building. How much are you going to charge me rent? Oh, well, market rent's 40. Okay, so you're going to charge me 40. What did I just tell you is in the financial statements? 20. So you're going to incur an extra $240,000 a year if you don't buy the building. How much does the business make? 500. Well, no, it actually makes 260 now, because I'm not buying the building. They've only got 20,000 a month allocated in their P&Ls that they're given to me to value the business, but they just told me that it's going to cost me 40 a month if I don't buy the building. Okay, well, that's fine. So now I'm making $240,000 less per month. Okay, so make sure you separate those. There's two separate transactions. They can be one loan. Make sure you value them separately. Okay, so rent number is super confusing. Okay, the other thing that's super confusing too, and I'll do an entire segment on this, is owner add-backs. Just like, for the most part, you guys would have taken the 168 and didn't care if it was W-2 or 1099, and you guys are okay with the $10,000 in insurance. You wouldn't even second guess if that's the right number. And the other thing that a lot of people do is they just take all the owners back and like, yeah, that's fine. The personal cars, the kids, the wife, the travel, the personal expenses, the personal life insurance, personal health insurance, all that shit, all these add backs. And nobody knows how to question them. Nobody knows how to question them. We got to question everything.
So how do you question them?
You come on here a bunch of times and listen to me. It's experience. I mean, you almost kind of just take them one at a time. One at a time, because they can get really, really confusing, right? The wife or the spouse working there is always confusing. Still confusing to me this day, 25 years later. Okay. What does the wife do? Oh, she's a bookkeeper. Okay, so you're asking, this is a pre-due diligence stuff. Definitely in due diligence, but maybe pre-due diligence questions. This would be after LOI. $30,000 is how much she's paid. What does she do? Oh, she does all of her bookkeeping. She does all of her hiring and firing. She does all of her invoicing. She does all of her inventory management. She does our HR. She does our legal and contract review. Person just keeps going on and on and on. So what's the question in your mind right now after I just said that?
You got to pay for someone else to do that then.
Yeah, you're going to pay him 30 grand?
And she's underpaid.
Way more.
Nope, you're going to pay him 60 to 75. So now that is what I call a negative add back. So spouse goes away, who was making 30, and now I'm replacing with somebody making 75. So that's an additional $45,000 of expense you are going to have to absorb. So that's a negative add back. I guarantee that's not on the add back section. No way in hell is that on the add back section. So add backs can get really, really, really confusing. Same thing with the owner. I only work about 10 hours a week. This will be due diligence. You got to talk away from the seller. Hopefully they got a manager there or somebody been around. Seller's named Steve. We'll go with Steve. And you're going to ask Billy, hey, Billy, yeah, how much does Steve work around here? Don't forget, Steve told you he works 10 hours a week. Oh, Steve here is 60 hours a week, and I know he goes home and works at night, doing estimates in the evening on the weekends. So Steve told you he works 10 hours a week, but he really works 60. That's a problem. Right? So you gotta understand the right questions, that sort of stuff. People like to talk, but we'll do the whole thing, and I'll throw up like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 add back sections on a bunch of deals, maybe next week or the week after, and we'll kind of start breaking all that shit down. But I know I get confused on them, and I don't like add backs. I like clean add backs, 1 or 2 or 3 things, super clean. But this laundry list of 15 add backs, sometimes I walk away. I just don't like it. So, and sometimes it's not bankable. When you have a company that has a net income of 200 grand and they have $400,000 of add backs, so the seller discretionary income is 600, you're gonna take that to the bank. What's the bank gonna tell you? Nope. Or what they'll do is, you're buying it for $2 million. The bank's like, yeah, I can only justify a loan based off of the net income off the tax return, and I'll add back the seller's salary, but none of the other add backs. So I can only give you $1 million loan. So you have to come up with the other $1 million. So a bunch of add backs aren't good for anybody. Just complicates things. Questions?
Yeah, Paul. So let's say we buy the business and it's an asset purchase, but we don't like any problems that arose during the time with any employees or anything. During the time it was a sole proprietorship, can they still go after you after you convert it to LLC?
No.
Okay.
You're talking about you bought it as an LLC. So at closing, you had created a legal entity,
Right.
Steve's Trash Company, and Steve's Trash Company bought the assets of this company. Right? Is that what you're saying? At closing?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you buy it. That's why you do an asset purchase, because you're just buying the assets of the business. You're not buying any liability,
The trucks.
skeleton
Yeah.
closets, or anything like that. Now, there's
Okay.
occasional, and I got a video on this. I'm gonna keep harping my videos until all you guys watch them. There's a video just on stock versus asset purchases. Okay, so 95% of the time you're gonna do an asset purchase for 2 reasons. I'm gonna tell you one of the reasons, and then I'm gonna see if somebody knows me number 2. First reason is you're not buying no skeletons in the closet, any past sexual assaults or anything like that, right? Bad firings or misconduct or anything like that. That's going to stay with the previous owner. What's the second reason why you want to do an asset purchase?
Can restart depreciation.
Restart depreciation. Well done. So especially on a deal like this, it has a lot of rolling stock, trucks and trailers and all that sort of stuff. I get to redepreciate those all over again. And when I get to redepreciate rolling stock, that numbers can be very, very fast, right? We talked about Section 179 and special depreciation already, right? So we got $600,000, $300,000, $330,000 of equipment, right? Let's say you take over year 1 and you made 400 grand, and I'm going to take Section 179 or special depreciation, right? So I'm going to show 0 income that year because I'm going to take all that depreciation. So then what are you going to do with all that money? You're going to save it. And you're ready to buy business number 2 already because you just banked 330 grand, right? Versus if you did a stock purchase on that deal, you can't if all of the trucks and equipment are already fully depreciated, you can't redepreciate them. So what you do is you're going to depreciate the purchase price. You buy this company for $1 million, and now you get to depreciate that goodwill over how many years? 15. So $1 million over 15 years is how many? Anybody can do that math for me? Is that 75? Call it 70,000. Is that right? 705.
66,000. Yeah,
66,000. So I'm taking 66,000 a year for 15 years versus taking 330 up front. Take the $330 up front all day long. Right. But there's sometimes you have to do a stock purchase, right? When you buy a company that has existing contracts in place that are not transferable, then you got to do a stock purchase. So occasionally there are some stock purchases that you have to do. But then you're gonna write in that purchase agreement to indemnify yourself against any past liabilities that may come to light. And then secondly, you potentially will put some money into an escrow account for 24, 36 months. If some things come up, maybe a purchase price is $1 million and you're going to peel off $100,000 and put that into an escrow account over here to be used if anything comes up in the first 2 or 3 years. And then if no, then you probably release that $100,000. Okay. What else? Got a couple more minutes. Good questions.
Would you submit an LOI without 2025 numbers?
Right now?
Yeah.
2.5 months into 26?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have a tax return yet. That's obvious. So, I mean, most likely is if I'm selling a company, I'm doing everything I can to file before March 15th. Right. I mean, right now I file all my corporate returns in October. I file extensions and stuff like that. But if I was selling my company, I would make sure that one company I'm selling has got tax return done. Because it's going to be hard to get a loan if I don't have a 25 return. It's the end of March, and they don't have a P&L for 25. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's scary. I guess my first question, why wouldn't they have 25 yet? What's wrong with their company? What's wrong with their bookkeeping? What's wrong with their systems, policies, and procedures that they don't have numbers that, I mean, literally outside of a couple things, reconciling my bank account and making sure all my credit card charges are in the right expense category. I mean, a week?
Yeah. This guy says he
Close the book the first of January, first week of January. Why 3 months later they haven't closed the books? That's super scary.
He switched bookkeepers.
Oh, okay. Okay. When did he switch bookkeepers?
In the last like 2 months.
Okay. I mean, I guess you can. I mean, it's non-binding. I mean, are there any numbers at all? I mean, they don't have.
It's numbers that he told me. It's nothing like written down. So it just makes it weird.
I wouldn't know what they are. Where is he getting those numbers from?
Yeah. Yeah. It could be Puma numbers, you know what Puma means, right?
No.
Pull out of my
ass.
Yeah.
Okay. That just scares me. But yeah, you can do 11-10.
It's a red flag, though.
What are 23, and 24 numbers?
They were very positive. It's like right in the buy box, but he just doesn't have 25 because he switched bookkeepers. And I mean, that's his answer.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, get it under LOI. That's fine. It's non-binding. I would lock it up for exclusivity 90 days starting from the date you receive 25 numbers.
Okay.
So if he doesn't get 25 numbers for another 3 months, you still got it locked up 6 months from now. And if those numbers are just smoking hot, 25, and I'm assuming you'll have interim 26, and if they're smoking hot, you got it locked up. That makes sense what I just said?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And these are going to be recorded. I missed last week's, but the Q&A was recorded. And this will be recorded. And hopefully we don't have to do any editing on these. They'll just drop straight into the community. I think we need to create a new tile to drop these in. And I'm going to try to get my Searcher OS guy, the creator on that. I'm going to try to get him on Wednesday Q&A to kind of give you a little tutorial of how to use Searcher OS. I'm going to try to get him to come on Wednesday for 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, do we have our own special password? Because it seemed like we were supposed to. I know it's free for a year, right? So, but the thing when you log in, it says like it's not free or it's free for like 12 days. Which is it?
Be a good question for him on Wednesday.
Okay. Maybe someone else figured it out. I don't know.
For 14 days.
Yeah, it said like 14 days or two weeks or whatever, 12 days.
Interesting. No, it's free for a year. Maybe it just says that and it'll stay free.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because this is brand new coming out of the gate. I was on the beta test of this tool back in November, December, and January. So this is brand new.
And it's got a CRM. How do you track your deals? Do you have your own CRM or someone that keeps track of all this stuff, or you do it yourself?
I just do it myself, but the CRM's good. I'm not looking actively as much as you guys are. I mean, if you guys are making calls out every single day and stuff like that, you need to have a CRM, long term play, right? Because then the one deal, say this trash deal was yours, well, that's gonna be in your CRM. You're gonna put a note in there to follow back up with this guy in 45 days, right? You're gonna have so many of those reach outs going on at the same time, right? Oh, I just talked to Billy. Billy said call him back in 30 days. Put that in the CRM. If you don't put it in the CRM, you're going to forget about it. And it has an automated SIM analyzer too, which I have not used yet, but it's supposed to be really good. But it's got some cool shit on there. If you guys have logged in already, it's already got like 4 little bars down on the very bottom that are red and green. And it has 4 green ones. There's 4 good things going on. If it's got 1 green thing and 3 red things, there's 3 little red flags to look at, right? Like a red flag would be owner heavily involved, right? So it's got some cool stuff built into it already to help you kind of just go through stuff really quick. And as you click on it, you can do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if you do a thumbs down, that'll go off your screen forever, right? If you're just scrolling, all that shit you scrolled through it's gonna come up again the next day. Go through that stuff and put a thumbs down, so it'll never come up on your screen again. So it's got some really cool capabilities to it. But I made a note. I'm gonna try to email him tomorrow to jump on the call with us on Wednesday. So, but yeah, you got it. It's free for a year, so that's not an issue. So if you any questions or concerns or login problems, just email me and I'll forward it to Kai.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. Anything else? All right, very good. We'll see you guys.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep.